Hello, folks out there. This episode of the podcast is partnered by Audible. Greg, you know what I love about Audible?
What do you love about Audible,
I
John?
don't have to pick up a book anymore and carry it around with me. In fact, I carry it around in my phone, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. They literally keep thousands of titles right on your phone, accessible at any time when you're driving, when you're cooking, when you're mowing the lawn, changing a diaper, doesn't matter. It's all right there at your fingertips, John. They've got podcasts, they've got lectures, they've got some like health and wellness and like fitness series on there that if you just are looking for something to fill that gap, like you're not getting into a book right now, it's all there for you, man.
If you're a member, Greg, what's cool about it is you get 3 titles per month. The first one, you can pick whatever you want. Like I've said, I'll probably start hitting up some of those health and wellness books. And then what's awesome is they have 2 Audible exclusives. Exclusives, folks. You can't get it anywhere else.
It's true. That is very true. So if you guys want to get on the Audible train, you can go to audibletrial.com/JATG. That stands for Johnny and the Greg. Hook yourself up with a 30-day free trial. No promises, no nothing. If you don't like it, which I can't imagine you're not going to like it, you can cancel at any time. But the great thing about that is the books you get during your free trial, or if at any time, those books are yours. Like you get to keep them. You can listen to them nonstop, anytime, all the time.
Sounds like a deal to me, man. So if you guys are smart, like I know you guys are, because you already listen to this podcast, sign yourself up, guys. What do you got to lose? It's 30-day free trial, and it's books, it's knowledge. Gotta drink it up.
It is. It is. So one more time, it is audibletrial.com/JATG.
Hello out there, everybody listening to the Johnny and the Greg podcast. Greg, we have with us Pat's Hand.
Close.
Oh,
I believe
it's not that.
It's Pat Shand.
Oh, it's Pat Shand. Sorry.
Pat Shand.
Sorry. Just kidding, folks. Yes.
Comic book writer extraordinaire. He's worked on some great stuff. I got to know his work on Zenescope, but he's also worked on books like Cross. He's got a new deal coming out with Black Mask Studios, and he's got a book right out. Volume 4 is coming, and it's Destiny New York. So that's what brought him on initially. We talk about that quickly, and then we just get into a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, and guys, this is another long one. And if you want to fast forward, we get into the gauntlet where I feel, and this is just my personal thing, I feel that more of Pat's personality came out and we just started shooting the shit. So it's kind of a technical side of the business and how he looks at it through his creative lens. And then it gets into just 3 guys just shooting the shit. So without further ado, guys, Pat Shand. Hey, Greg, who do we got with us today?
Hi, John. We're here with Pat Shand. He is a comic book writer. And we were just talking about this. We had met years ago, I believe at Motor City Comic Con. And you were doing, I think, a lot of Zenescope books at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be where I got to kind of get into your work. Zenescope being one of those companies that really came out of nowhere for me, doing like the Grimm's fairy tales and kind of the retelling of those classic fairy tales that we all kind of liked through Disney. But Zenescope took a different take on it, more the original takes, I think.
Yeah, they started out with the intention of essentially staying more true to the originals and doing the Grimm story, as horror comics.
Yeah.
But it's been, as they've published, they've taken different shapes. When I came in, they began to do this more interconnected type storytelling, and they've become one of, if not the biggest indie superhero universe that there is.
Yeah.
Grimm itself has been going for, when I left the run, I did issue 125, and they rebooted it with a new issue 1, and they're on like 50 now. So it's this long running indie series that people don't really realize that it's a superhero universe, but yeah, it's developed into that, and it's been fun watching it kind of like take different modes. It's been the main title has been a prison story, it's been a fantasy saga, it's been an X-Men type story when I was on it, and now it's this it's kind of like back to the roots of fairy tale with a bit of the superhero spice mixed in. And yeah,
it's been great. I discovered it through thepullbox.com, where my buddy Eric and I founded that website, and our focus was always independent comics. So we hooked up with Zenescope early. I think at one point in our history there, my buddy Eric had reviewed every single issue of Grimm Fairy Tales for like a really big run, and got the attention of actually Raven Gregory. Was like, you guys have been like longtime supporters of us, and it was just really cool to see that. But you have a new book coming out, and I want to get to this first before we start doing our red rubber ball all over the place in the Nerdscape. Like John and I started a WandaVision conversation 2 minutes before you signed on. And so before we get there, I do want to talk about your latest volume of Destiny NY coming out.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us the pitch on that for people that don't know?
All right. So the pitch on Destiny New York is it's the story of a girl named Logan McBride. She had a prophecy made about her when she's young, just a kid. And she completes her destiny when she's about 13. So now the comic picks up with her when she's in her 30s, trying to figure out how to live a life with meaning, but when pretty much everyone thinks that she's already done the greatest thing that she'll ever do.
Oh, that's interesting.
Hey, thanks.
No, I mean, like, think about it. I mean, I'm saying when I didn't mean to say think about it. I mean, I'm thinking about it, and like that's look. Forgive my ignorance right off the bat. I'm more of the
John's our sports guy,
comic guy, and I'm more of a sports guy. So I love having guys on like you because I don't know what to talk about with you, but I enjoy really listening and really trying to figure out what I really admire about writers is their creative process, and we'll get in farther into that. But you've already hit a nerve with me in terms of like I wonder if that's what like professional athletes go through. Once they win the Super Bowl and they have to most retire around 30. Now what?
That's right. Yeah.
Was that kind of your inspiration right there with that, or?
We there are a few different tracks of careers of lifestyles that can lend itself to this, and what we were talking about early on was the idea of the child star. That you're a movie star, a celebrity in any way. Sports in actual movies. As a kid, right? And then what do you do as an adult? These people have these downward spirals. Now, we have all these fantasy worlds. Like, I mean, I actually even just said X-Men. You have the Harry Potter universe where you have these kids who are doing incredible things as a kid. And just for example, Harry Potter, right? We're supposed to think that he just becomes like a wizard cop.
Yeah.
As an adult, when he was, I mean, he was the shit as a kid, like what he did as a kid would have ramifications on the entire world. Even people who
literally peaked in high school.
Yeah,
I mean, is what you're talking about. And then you're like, because my kids are discovering Harry Potter, so we talk about this quite a bit as like, what did they do afterward?
Yeah,
and it's like, well, yeah, Harry becomes a cop. Now, I come from a family of cops.
Wait, is that official? Is that official?
Oh, that's totally official. Yeah.
So they're writing books on that now?
No, they're not books. They're more, well, there was a play, The Cursed Child, when that came out. That was a play that's now been turned into a book, and you read it like a script.
Okay.
But J.K. Rowling,
I don't mean that to be the part of this podcast. I just didn't know that he turned into a cop.
Yeah, he turns into a magic cop, an auror is what they call it.
Cool.
And yeah, but for the most part, like Ron, I mean, he becomes like his dad, more or less, being like the Muggle studies guy. And his dad, not a glorious job. I mean, these kids literally saved the universe in that book. And they're just humdrum lives.
So we're dealing with Logan, who's already now. What was her prophecy again? Because I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of vague. Her prophecy was to essentially go to a place and remove untouched death from a place where thought and feeling is physical. So
Right. Okay.
the basic idea was for her to do this incredibly mystical thing that she has no emotional tie to it. She has no personal connection to what she did. So when she's told that this thing defines her, she's like, I don't feel that way.
Hmm.
That's
And
really
like in this universe, like it's kind of out there. It's not like a hidden magic world or anything like that. I mean, when you sent the volumes and stuff, and I'd always seen, and I feel bad now that we got you on a little bit because I'd always seen it on the comic shelf and kind of flipped through it, thought the art was cool, but I never really read through it. And then I'm trying to like digest, 3 volumes that you sent us, and I'm like, that's a lot to take in. But I thought it was great, just kind of the idea, and I'm gonna mess it up, the people with the blackened out eyes, that
Seers, yes,
the
Seers,
Seers, yeah.
Seers.
So I mean, they're not hiding. They're not in hiding in society.
Yeah.
Everybody's just kind of out there. So then everybody knows like the prophecies and stuff like that. So everybody knows she kind of peaked.
Oh yeah, yeah. The idea is that magic is a real part of everyday life, but it's somewhat mundane in how it's accepted. My thought was that you see all these versions of fantasy worlds where life is totally changed. Like for example, in The Hobbit, they can do these. There are wizards who do this immense magic, and then people live in holes. Like
Mhm.
my thought was, what if we had a couple of centuries ago discovered some kind of rudimentary magic, and it's just regular life, and the way that I addressed it was that we would see it in small ways, like in volume one. There are feats of magic, like you have in volume one, you have the staffs that can be used to kill someone, but so some of the early magic that we see Logan rubbing on this stone that's set to reduce her anxiety. And my thought was like that could be this world's answer to some kind of anxiety pills, where the magic doesn't have to be like there is a version in my head. Like say if Destiny New York would be pitched as a cartoon, I would have like buildings floating in the sky, like I even had a pitch to do it as an anime to a company where there was buses were made out of the skeletons of dragons and stuff, but that isn't what the book is. The book is just magic is incorporated into real life in a way that it just speaks to how our lives are always going to be the same kind of no matter what. Technology develops in this world, magic does too.
Have you read Patrick Rothfuss Kingkiller Chronicles, In the Name of the Wind, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, so I get a kind of that feeling with the way magic works, and that it's called sigildry in there for people that don't know, but it can do like these grand, powerful things, or in this kind of fantasy setting, it can make a refrigerator. I
Yeah.
mean, just kind of like very simplistic, everyday things, which when you think about it, is amazing. But people are just kind of taking it for granted, as is just the everyday piece. So what happens in? I mean, can you preview Volume 4 for us for the
Yeah.
fans that might tune in and see what's going on?
Definitely, yeah. Okay, so volume 4, it picks up where should I even start? There's so many character threads. It starts with the two lead characters, Logan and Lilith. They're on separate coasts, and Logan takes a trip back to New York. And when she returns to this place that she left, she becomes embroiled in a sort of conflict that Lilith has stirred up with this senator. Because Lilith, I have to touch on her for this to make sense. She is the last surviving daughter of a mystical crime family. So her family was essentially like the DeMio crime family of magic. Like her dad was the Tony Soprano of magical, arcane, illegal tools. And her parents are dead. Her sister ran the show, and her sister's in this coma now, and she's left to take care of her sister and sort of take over this business that she has herself run from and rejected her whole life. So the same way that Logan has ran from the idea that she is her prophecy, Lilith has escaped from the idea that she is supposed to be this person. But now with Logan, who was her girlfriend, Logan's gone in California, and Lilith is left to protect her sister and has inherited her family's problems, which are they take the shape of the senator who is also secretly running a magical crime empire. And these two empires sort of like butt heads. And Lilith begins to find and to work on kind of using this child, this teenager named Joe Rollins. And Joe is a guy, we see him as a kid in Volume 1. He grows up through the series, and his prophecy kind of like puts him at odds with the senator. And Joe actually started as a Harry Potter joke. He was like a bit of satire in showing what the book is not going to be. But my philosophy with this book is that every character who you would assume is going to be a bit part, when they're introduced, they'll eventually become a main character. Every character we introduce will have a main part. So yeah, Logan re-enters New York and sees the person that she was with essentially using a classmate of hers as a weapon against this senator who has kind of like been the creeping villain in the background of the whole series.
Wow. Okay. This sounds like a very complex, like you said, there's a lot of character threads. It already sounds like there's a ton. So my question to you, and again, this is the dummy on this podcast. When you're doing this creative process, when you're creating all these characters, do you have some sort of like FBI wall where you have all these little like strings attached to pictures or character? Like how do you keep all this in your head and bring it out to like the end of the arc? How do you do that?
There are I did in the past have a big not for this story but previous stories. I have had a corkboard wall. I would put things on, but now I have a document where I plan certain things, but it's one of those things where this has been such a long running series for me. We're on volume 4 is done. It's in digital form. It's released that way, and it it exists in print, but everyone at the shipping port has COVID, so
Sure.
it's
Right.
locked at the shipping port for about 2 months now. So I'm working on volume 5, and it's been in my head for so long, and I know the characters so well that a lot of it really is second nature to me, in that in some way or another I'm always thinking about them. Whereas with other stories, because I do other stories as well, with non-Destiny New York stories, I do have to keep a bit like tighter tabs. Like every issue I write, I'll reread everything that came before it. With Destiny, I don't have to. I work on it for so long, and I'm so attentive to the art as it comes in, and to make sure every panel fits. I'll see the art, I'll tweak the dialogue as it comes in. I'm so in it that it really does exist in my head to where there are things that I know will happen that I won't even write down. I want it to develop naturally in my thoughts.
Very cool. That's very cool.
So the two things you mentioned there that I want to hit on. One, I want to commend you on making a comic that's so accessible. It really is. In my getting through volume 1 and 2, one of the things that I thought of was, this is definitely a comic that you can go to somebody who either has some kind of stigma against comics, like they're still stuck in that 1980s, 1990s America where comics are for kids and nobody I'm an adult, I don't read those. And you can hand them this and say, this is a story that you're going to get into. It's about real people, real problems. Yes, there's this magic element, but like you said, it's just a part of everyday life. And then it's just solid, good storytelling, and you can get into that. So congratulations on that. I think you did a great job accomplishing that. But the art was, I think it's great. It's got that, it's black and white, but it's a different kind of black and white than I think I've seen a lot of lately. I just like, the use of grays really is what kind of brought me in. Just seeing that whole process, and
it's great to look at. I mean, you've had a couple different artists on the series, but every one of them I think has just nailed the visual aspect of it. So I just want to say good job on that too.
I mean, yeah, it's been you know, in the ideal world, you have an artist and they stick with you the whole time. But what I will say though, as a writer, it's easier for me to say I'll stick with this series for 10 years than it is for an artist, because the truth is, I started the series with an artist named Manuel Pertano, and Manuel, since doing Destiny, he's done covers of issues of different things here and there. He had this DC graphic novel, and that's the most that a hand can physically draw in that time. Me, I've written as many gigs as I've gotten. I write articles every day. It's easier for a writer to take on more. So I do go into all these books knowing, we have this specific artist for a time, and they're gonna have their run, and then when they move on, it is what it is. But thankfully, we've been very we being myself and our editor Shannon Lee, we've been very discerning in which direction we pick. We find artists who we like, we do test pages, and we make sure that they can fit what you're talking about, because that style where you open it and it doesn't feel like it should have color, that's not that easy to create. That's
right.
There are a lot of test pages where I'm like, man, this artist is good, but it's just a tick off from the complete look that we need. And sometimes we'll give notes, and sometimes we'll be like, all right, this artist is good for this short story, and then we gotta move on, because we need someone who can really capture how this book has looked for 5 years now.
Well, good. Thank you for being so discerning. So you brought up something that I'm going to shift into. John, do you have any more Destiny questions before I ask him about another project?
I do have one that's tinkering in my head, and it's kind of, and I don't know if I should ask it because it might throw us off on a completely different tangent, but I guess I'm just going to throw it out there, and we'll roll with it as it goes. Where are you getting? I think it's such a fantastic idea you have of what happens after I've saved the day.
Yeah.
Right. So where are you pulling that from? Are you pulling that from? Is that just someday you were sitting there watching Harry Potter, for example, and you just said, "Well, I wonder what happens to Harry now," or like, where did you get that? Where did you all of a sudden sit there and come up with the whole idea of? Because it sounds to me like this entire thing is based off of the idea of, all right, you peaked. Now what?
It came to me. It was just a mixture of things. It's very hard to trace the exact origin, but I do know a product of pitching comic book stories is that the industry, you were talking about how it's accessible because it's about people. The industry, in some ways, they don't really take to those kind of stories. They want the high concept pitch. It's this meets that. So a lot of what I was doing was figuring out how to tell a human story, but add a genre element that could be sold as, it's this meets that, but really just make it into a way that sounds like a big pitch, but really it is a key into telling a very human story. And I felt, when I created it, I was in my late 20s, right? And I was sort of, I was feeling that a lot of the stories that I was telling, like for example, I was writing a magical school story at Zenescope. Grim Fairy Tales had become this sort of like X-Men in a school type setting, and my thought was, these are all teen characters. I've been tasked with writing stories that, feature teen characters, and I've loved stories like this. But how could I bring a fantasy element into a story that is for 30-somethings, that's about 30-somethings, and it feels relevant? So I began to think of, there's Lord of the Rings just takes adult characters and puts them on a journey. How could I find the balance between a Harry Potter type situation where Harry Potter has many slice of life elements. Even though they're going through this big journey, I was like, that kind of story, that's slice of life. Buffy, teen characters, slice of
Yeah.
life, magic in action. How can I come up with a story that has the element that I could pitch that way, but also is about someone like me now? And then I just thought on it, and that came to me. It was at first we were much more heavy on the child star comparison, but that was just the way in. Like
Right.
as we developed it and as I wrote it, it began to take different shapes, and even the volumes take different shapes. Like volume 1 is the story of a budding romance. Volume 2 is a lived-in romance, and then volume 3 is, in one corner, it is a heartbroken person who is inheriting this family trouble and deciding whether or not she's essentially going to become a crime lord. To part 2 of volume 3 is a woman dealing with the fact that her dad is dying, and then volume 4 is pretty much Breaking Bad with magic. So it changes every time that I go back to it, and I think that's what makes it kind of hard to trace, is that it's Destiny New York that I'm writing now. It progressed naturally, but it's very different from when I started. Like for example, uh, volume 1 has what's worthy of about 5 issues in there of content, and we're going to be putting out the series as single issue comics in comic book stores now. It's coming out through Black Mask next month in comic shop
cool.
as a single issue series.
Love that company.
Yeah,
love
I
that
love
company.
them too.
They put out great stuff.
Yeah, they've treated me very well. I did Snapflash Hustle and Breathless there. Great company. But thinking back though, it's like it's so crazy to have to be writing volume 5 and knowing what that is, as people are going to be experiencing volume 1 issue 1 for the first time. It's just so different.
Yeah.
And it's definitely hard to look back and see the exact inspiration, because it feels like I've been really investing in a world and in these characters for the past 5 years. So it's almost become less of it feels less like I created it and more as if I woke up and I knew these people. Like
Yeah.
I really try to think about them all the time.
So am I guessing this right then, that each volume takes at least a year to create?
Yeah, in the past, I think volume 1, if you put all the time together, volume 1 took more than a year, but was less than a year of work, because Manuel is fast, and I wrote it all in advance, and we wrote issue 1. Well, I wrote issue 1 and he drew it as a pitch. We were pitching it around.
I see.
And then when we took it to Kickstarter, I was like, all right, well, just do the rest now. And then the rest was done in like 3 months. So that was quick. But ever since then, because it's not new anymore, so there's a lot more that we have to get right, because things that happen in volume 5 now have to connect in many ways to what happened in previous, like 4 previous volumes, 2 spin-offs, and a short story collection. So it's a lot more intensive now.
Yeah.
And now when I sit down to write a chapter, it's like ritualistic. I have to really prepare for it, because I'm going to be going into something that is a lot more reference intensive for the artist, that's work intensive for me, because sometimes I'll, in this space that I could write the whole script, dialogue, and everything for in like 5-6 hours for a freelance thing, Destiny New York. So sometimes it's a breeze. Other times that 5-6 hours is like 5 pages, because it's just it's a lot slower when I have to be like, all right, this character is going to talk about this, which you had to read, and I'll put screenshots in, and I'll just give this whole weighty document to the artist. And hopefully it's helpful. It's probably a bit intensive for the artist, but it is what it is.
So it's like volume 1 was laying down the foundation, and now you have to constantly keep connecting it to the foundation as you build
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Greg.
All right. Well, I wanted to move on because in researching you as much as I could, I did find that you just had a Kickstarter that ended in December for Thirsty.
Yeah.
So, couple different things on here. It says 4 comics drawn by some of the comics' top talent. Make for the spiciest graphic novel you read this year. If you're a fan of comics of like Sunstone, Smut Peddler, you'll love Thirsty's hilarious, emotional, exciting, and character-driven erotica. And you're writing this with your wife, and
Yeah.
I think that is so cool. And I just, it looks like a cool book. What is that about, and when can we see it?
All right, so Thirsty, I believe it comes out, and I'm not 100% sure because I have to look at my schedule and see when things are going. I believe Thirsty is going to be out by October, if not before.
Okay.
Digitally before. But yeah, it is kind of like that movie Crash, how it is different stories but they
Sure.
connect.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like that kind of a format in that there are 4 individual stories that are brought together by one overlapping story, and it's stories about the way that sex takes shape in different people's lives. Like there are humorous stories, there are emotional stories, and there are just like horny stories. Like there's this one story. It's like half written mostly by Amy and half written mostly by me, and we each contribute to one another's stories. Like one of Amy's stories, for example, is about a girl who goes to essentially a futuristic doll store for sex dolls. Like she goes to the store and she programs different items that she likes onto this doll, and
I'm sorry, Pat. I didn't mean to laugh. I just
Oh,
I
no, laugh,
pulled
dude.
up. I
Laugh.
pulled up your Kickstarter and I see this. I see your picture and I don't know what you're doing here, but you have a Pokemon ball and you're in a unique position.
Yeah, my I've turned my shorts into poom poom shorts,
Yes.
and I've cocked one of my legs up. Not to use the word cock, but
Exactly.
I've placed one of my legs
Go
up.
ahead.
Yeah,
And I will say, I appreciate your wife's picture way more than yours.
yeah. I mean, I do too. You know what's funny? And actually, I have a little Pokeball right here too.
Oh, cool.
So I'll just strike a pose for you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to throw you off
Oh,
topic.
no. With Amy's picture though, real quick, it was just so funny that she was wearing these glasses, and I was like, "You look like Jeffrey Dahmer," and she did,
She does.
Yeah. So what I did was, I forget how much the picture shows, but if you look on her chest, her nipples are covered with pictures of Jeffrey Dahmer's
Jeffrey
face.
Dahmer. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know. Okay,
I'm not gonna lie. I had to zoom in to be like, "What?
Yeah.
What is that? Who is it? Oh, it's okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet
What's the
by the way.
tattoo? What's the tattoo on her torso?
That is an anatomical heart with an eye in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think anytime comics, in like serious comic writers, I mean, there are sex comics out there that are just meant for fun. They're cartoons. They're whatever. Like Tim Seeley's got a book out. Oh geez, and the name
Money Shot.
Money Shot. Thank you. When Money Shot hit the racks a couple of years ago, it was, I think, right before C2E2 last year. It came out, and it was the concept. Yes, it's a sex comic, but it's not about sex. I mean, it just had this great social commentary to it, and I think that if you can take a sexual topic with a great writer like yourself and turn that into a book, I just get excited to read that because it's a topic that will certainly draw people in, but then you can say so much with it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, people are scared about that kind of stuff, like
Americans are. I mean, it's very much an American phobia, I think.
That's true. I mean, like, it does. I think I have an axe to grind because it comes back to when I was working at Zenescope. I was exclusive there for years. I was a staff writer, but at the same time, the truth is that they knew, I knew that that my contract would be up, and I had aspirations to write everywhere, and I had meetings with multiple companies, and it often got brought up that the fact that I worked on books that had these quote unquote sexualized covers, that was going to be a hindrance in hiring me, and that there was a perception to that kind of stuff.
Do they know who buys comics?
Well, that's the answer. The answer is no, and it's funny, like websites will do just like little jokey bits, like they've done articles about like who reads Zenescope, and I'll tell you who reads Zenescope, mostly women, like that's these sites, these people don't know who wants that kind of content. Sunstone from Cegic sells so well because women like it, women and men, and that kind of thing. That the fact that books with elements of sexuality, sometimes exaggerated or sometimes just elements in general, are often looked down upon and looked at as the creators are less publishable, when really that creator is getting read more and read wider than anyone that they could realize, in any way that they could realize, that is. And it made me, like, in the past, I used to try to distance myself. I was like, I would always say to people like, the books are more than the covers. And while that's true, I no longer feel that way when looking back at my work there. I more feel, if you don't want to read it, fuck you then. I couldn't care less now. Now I'm like, oh, so you think that I can't get a job at so-and-so company because of my sex story? Instead of being sad, I'm going to write a sex story that I create then. So, because I was so like, oh man, I've been hired to do this, and could it have hurt my career? That's what I thought, but now I'm like, fuck it. Like now I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to hire me, cool. That's all right then.
I think people in comic book boardrooms need to get to know their audiences a lot better. They need to walk back when we could have conventions and whatnot, they need to walk the floors and not just stick around their little booth panels and not just talk to the other high-powered people that are there, but start to go through some long boxes and listen to the conversations that the people that are actually buying comics are having, and walk up and down Artist Alley and see what's drawing people in. Because even like the last convention I went to, which was C2E2, last year, it was about a year ago, because I think it was in March. See, and again, I get going and I forget people's names. Nora, Carnal Confessions. She's got a book. And again, it was one of those huge things that premiered at that con. John, do you remember? You were there with me. This book is called Carnal Confessions. It does have a very overt sexuality to it, but it's a great story. I mean, and that's what people are missing. Or if they're going to point out kind of that sexualized cover and say, well, I don't want to do that because that can't be a good story, they're wrong. There's plenty of good stuff. Meanwhile, one of the best-selling series of novels in the past 20 years has been 50 Shades of Grey. And you go, that's housewives looking for the exact kind of content that these comics are producing.
That's right. So hang on a second. So do you guys believe that when you guys are talking about the board guys that are making all the decisions, the hiring or not hiring, or do you think that has a lot to do with how, like, Disney took Marvel and made it so mainstream and so cool, and so like now it's, you're not a nerd anymore in high school if you read a comic book. Now you're one of the cool kids if you read a comic book. Do you think that hurt? You think that added to this whole, what I'm saying is, if I'm looking at this through an exec, they're thinking about what sells, and they think what sells is Captain America.
It's a widget. It's a widget to them. It's not a comic book. It's not a character. It's not even an industry. I mean, those guys are making decisions based on whatever product it is. They're saying this is a widget. We need it to be able to be family friendly to have broad sales, and I don't think that's true. At least that's my take on it, or what I can observe. Pat, you probably have a better introspective look at that.
I mean, I think what it is it comes down a lot to the idea that publishers chase what's quote unquote cool. Like it's right now it's cool to be an asshole on Twitter. Right, right now it's cool to like share a hot take about everything. You see the publishers doing it. You see publishers, editors going on Twitter and just airing out these really aggressive opinions about everything, and it comes down to wanting to be, just the person to have the craziest take first, the hottest take first, to look the coolest, to look the most disaffected, right? And I think that there's a certain vulnerability, and there's a certain earnestness to stories about sex that scares people off, and that scares that kind of person off. The person who's so concerned about appearances. If I publish this book, what will people think of my company? That kind of thing. I think that people are so concerned about appearing to be the cool on the edge of what's hip publisher, right? That they're missing what the audience actually wants, which is point blank period story,
So Pat, do you feel, and this is something that if anybody's listening to this that is a fan of yours and wants to get into this industry, do you find yourself constantly reminding yourself about, like, what I'm saying is, how do you stay with your vision and not alter your vision so that it sells? Because I'm sure when you're breaking into it, right, and the guy's like, this is great, but can you not make this sexy? Can you just make this like John Wick? And you're like, oh man, that's not the story I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes, I mean, what I do that I've noticed is I will, like you said, the like John Wick type thing, I'll look at that after, like, I pitched Breathless to Black Mask, right? And I pitched Breathless as this story that essentially turns what Big Pharma does with medicine, with prices for medicine, turn that into a horror story. Take that as the metaphor, and then add actual monsters. And the pitch that was come up with later was that it's like Buffy versus Big Pharma. That wasn't what it was conceived as, but that's what was the equation that would get people to be like, oh, what's this? But I don't think of that in the process of the story. I think of that more down the line, or that might have even been Black Mask. I don't even remember. But there does. I mean, I hate it, but there has to be that it's blank meets blank, or it's blank with this twist. That is how people sell things these days. But no, I don't think of it in the process. It's just I always try to think at least of what's the most natural story for me to tell. But at the same time, though, I do stay savvy in that, like, for example, with Thirsty, and this just goes to show how much people want this kind of story. Thirsty was far and away my biggest Kickstarter, like double almost.
Nice.
It was by far the biggest. So I was talking to Shannon Lee, and we're like, all right, so that's our December now forever. Until the interest dies, our December is going to be a Kickstarter like this, a graphic novel like this. So just the thought is every year come up with stories that are that fit this mode in some way. So that's more of what I do sales wise. Is I look at what works for me and for us, and I kind of lean into that in a way, And some people call that brand, but I don't want to do that because I'm not going to be always doing that kind of story. I'm just doing it as a part of my career now. This was previous books like Destiny New York, of course, we do one volume per year at least. And also Amy and I write a book called Prison Witch, and Prison Witch has 2 volumes now. And the truth is that, I love Prison Witch, and so does Amy. But the person who buys Destiny is the same person who buys Prison Witch. That's a very similar audience, and then I did this book Afterglow and a book Spooky Girls, also very similar audiences. So Thirsty is the first time that we've experimented with this audience, and now during Thirsty, I was brainstorming ways to pull this audience toward my other stuff. Like, for example, Destiny New York. It has romance elements, sexual elements. So we decided to do a one-off digital story that Thirsty backers would get that introduces them to this world.
Nice.
And yeah, so that's more of how I think about it. Ways to market it after the actual creative part is done.
Well, you've brought it, and it sparked in my mind just working for companies like Black Mask and companies, even Zenescope at the beginning, where they were pushing boundaries of the comics industry. And
Hey, Greg, how so? For those of you that don't know, what is Zenescope? You guys have mentioned it a couple of times. What?
It's a company. I think they've been around, gosh, maybe 20 years.
How have they pushed boundaries?
Well, it started off like they had these very almost think of like the Halloween costumes of like a sexy Snow White, and a sexy Cinderella.
Okay,
and,
all right,
and that's what they were putting on their covers, and it was, and for sure it was eye catching. I mean, they were doing like swimsuit issues and stuff. I mean, it was something that you walked by that their booth, and you went, "Oh, what's that?"
Okay, so they were very sexualized.
Well, the covers looked good, and it was cheesecake for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no gratuitous sexual things in there. Okay. But then you started reading the stories, and you went, "Damn, this is a good story." I mean, that for me, that was my experience. Reading like Grimm fairy tales, and then I actually read Robin Hood for a while. Just great stories that they would have sexy covers. And then as their audience built, they kind of almost got away from the sexy covers a little bit, and then it was just, less skin on the cover, I guess I would say, less of that cheesecake and more like a pose of the hero of the comic.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, the costumes in general definitely. I mean, the way that you said it was perfect. It did in the past. The Red Riding Hood costume, the Snow White costumes were very Party City, But then they had this great guy, Anthony Spey. He's an artist and designer. He came on. He did the costumes anew and made them sort of like still sexy, but still but superhero. Now the Snow White character Sela looked more like she was wearing a superhero costume rather than a skirt and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like some armor elements and stuff. If I remember right. Still very cool.
And now, I mean, they still do covers that are, and they would even say cheesecake. Actually, Ralph Tedesco, who is one of the founders, he just did this great Twitter thread asking what it is that people who don't read Zenescope but criticize them online, what is it about the covers that puts them off? And he engaged with the audience and answered questions, and he pointed out that people have a perception, but the amount of cheesecake covers they do, it's minimal. Like they'll do like 3 or 4 covers per issue, and cover C is what you think, and then covers A and B and maybe even D are either hero poses or narrative covers. And I think that goes back into what I was saying before, is that people feel a stigma, and then they lean into it and don't want to hear anymore. And they don't want that nuance, because the nuance complicates things for them,
Well, I do want to bring up, you worked on a book that, for me, was the most batshit crazy book I've ever read. Crossed?
Oh, yeah.
So, Crossed is a book by Avatar.
Yes.
right? That's the Avatar's the name of the company. And John, I know you've seen the book before. I don't know if you've ever read it, but there's a sickness going around where everybody gets like this giant burned cross on their face. And it is by far the most psychotic and gratuitous book
Yeah.
I had ever. I remember at a con, and I'm just flipping through. And at one point, and these people are nuts. They are off their rocker, like any social norm is out the window.
Yeah.
A guy ripped off a woman's arm and then had sex with it.
Oh, yeah. Jesus.
And that was one of those things where I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this? I don't know if I'm gonna buy it, but yeah, I gotta know what it is. And the guy pitched it to me, and I was like, wow, it is. Yeah. So, what was it like working on that book?
So, I came into it from a very similar perspective in that, I knew what Crossed was, and I looked into it, and it was kind of like, just in general, it's a harrowing experience. It's a world with no joy. It's rough, and I was scared to really give it that much of a shot because of how dark it was.
Yeah.
Is that because you had to go to a dark place to write that way?
No. This was even before I was involved at all.
Okay.
I had heard of it because it was kind of infamous, and I remember two things though. I was with a writer who I know and love, and he and I walked to the Avatar booth. And this is actually when I first met William at Avatar. And my friend starts pitching William this Crossed story in front of me. And William goes, it's not just about the violence, right? Like there's more to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And that intrigued me. And then maybe like a year or so later, I went to Calgary Comic-Con and I met Cy Spurrier. He's a great writer. He did Cry Havoc at Image. He's done a bunch of great stuff. And Cy at the time was writing a book called Crossed, Are You There Yet? I think it was like a webcomic first that was then published as a trade. And he and I were in this car together going to the show, and he talked about it, and I was like, wow, the way that you put it, it sounds great. Mm-hmm. And so that was my way in, that he pitched that to me that way, and that I had I began to see writers that I loved. For instance, Alan Moore. Alan Moore took over Crossed for he did this Crossed plus 100, which is the world of Crossed plus 100 years. So it's that world 100 years later. So you see how in some ways society has changed. He's developed this whole new language. You see new slang, new words come up. He developed a whole new world. So that book was super intriguing to me. And when I was invited to write it, my invite was that Christos Gage was writing the main story, which would continue Alan Moore's Crossed plus 100, and my story was to look at Alan Moore's Bible for the world that he created and write short stories that lead up to his version of Crossed, changing the world at the pace that he set. So it was like I was given this roadmap by, the legend of all comic book legends.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So that was really intriguing to me, and it was just it felt less like writing from a dark place, and it felt a bit more there were certainly dark things. In the first chapter, because they were all standalone stories, all take place at a certain point in time, with each one going a bit more toward the future that Alan Moore created. And it was more just the pressure to stay on his vision and to make it all in line with what Alan Moore had written, and that was the hard part, because it was just so in depth. I could probably read the entirety of Crossed Comics in the time it would take me to read his full Bible. It's it's very, very in depth. So it felt more as if I was shaping what he had already done into narrative rather than going to a super dark place.
Damn, some of this stuff is insane.
Oh,
I'm looking
Yeah,
at
yeah,
some of
yeah.
these, just some of these covers, and wow.
The way you put it actually is intriguing to me. It makes me maybe want to go check that out. I wasn't aware because after my initial kind of pitch to that, I was like, yeah, I guess that's really not for me, or especially where I was at that point in time. I'd probably be able to handle it a lot better now.
yeah.
But I go back and I was just talking. I've got a high school age daughter, and she wants to start watching Walking Dead, and I'm like, well, any good post-apocalyptic story, be it zombies, be it Mad Max, be it whatever, it's not about the thing itself. It's about the survivors and the people. And in my first flipping through, I didn't quite get that from Cross. But if you're saying that that's essentially what, and I knew, Alan Moore, I'm like, wow, that's really out there. But if he's doing that year 100 and how society changes after something like that, that's intriguing. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's Cross does have a lot in common with Walking Dead, but not always though. It
Right.
is at different point different things. When Suspiria wrote it, for sure it was. When I wrote it, it wasn't. What I wrote was, it was vignettes that were everyone had a different POV. Like there was some comedy type things.
Mhm.
Like my second one was it was about how Alan wrote this stuff about how long it takes nature to take back the world. So not only from the Crossed, but from humanity.
Yeah.
These department stores have been overturned and just looted and abandoned for decades. And now when I pick up with it, you've seen now there's grass in there.
Sure.
Lions have migrated here, and it's just Alan Moore wrote all this stuff about how that kind of thing could happen, right? So then I had this chance to, all right, so, tell a story about the Crossed. They've been looking for just humans to fuck around with for a long time, but now they're fleeing from lions, so so issue 2 is the hunter has become the hunted as these two Crossed are in a Target store and they're trying to not get eaten by a lion, and it's just like, that's one story. And then there's one part of Cross Plus 100 is that there's this school where the Crossed, who, I mean, they're much more they're more verbal than zombies. They speak, they say horrible things, but there's no logic. But there's a school in Cross Plus 100 where this character is teaching the Crossed to react, to think logically, and to actually write.
Like
so
rehab almost.
Yeah. So my story was about this one Crossed, this young girl Crossed named Cockrip, and she is in this class, and she's actually writing, and there's this other Crossed, this guy who is supposed to, his exercise is to not attack, so he's being provoked and he is not to attack. If you attack, you're punished, so eventually nature gives in and he attacks, so he's strapped down, and then they're like, all right, Cockrip, come here, and then you already can figure out what she does, and it's just how they're taught that way, so
Yeah.
it was a moment in Cross that we've seen the perspective of humans being brutalized by these creatures, people, for all these issues, but Avatar gave me the chance to tell a story that was from the perspective, in a couple of different ways, of actually the Crossed,
Well, I certainly appreciate companies like Avatar that can push that envelope, that it will even allow other companies to maybe not push it as far, but be like, well, we're not Avatar.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I really like when Black Mask, Aftershock, when that company hit, they had some books that pushed boundaries too, but they were all great. I mean, just really good stories. So
Yeah. I mean, dude, my thought was that no matter what I do, right, I want to tell a good story, and that I could turn any content into an engaging story that people care about. Like it's crazy, but for example, as I was writing Cross, my other gigs were Disney Princess and Underdog, you know,
Nice.
and I wanted to bring the same level of attention and story there, and just like to make Underdog as funny and as fun as it could be, and to
Mhm.
make Crossed, I wanted it to live up what I heard Williams say years before, that it isn't just what people think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite story? Like your favorite creation, your favorite like did you really enjoy your chance at Underdog? Did you like Disney Princess? Like what's your baby? What's your you sit there and you go, "Wow, I really
Um, Destiny New York for me, definitely
yeah.
of my creations,
Yes.
of my hired work. I'll give two answers. Um, my Robin Hood run at Zenescope is
Mhm.
Okay.
is very close to me. In fact, just I mean, Zenescope was very unique, and I actually reached out to Joe Brusher, who he with Ralph co-created Zenescope. Uh, he runs the show, and Ralph and I are very close. But Joe, I wanted to reach out to him and be like, listen, like, um, it's weird that you know you and I had a more business relationship, so I just want to tell you that you know, looking back, I think that it's amazing how much work you gave me and how much trust you put in me to be a shepherd of your creations. Because I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to really put into words how many books I have my hands in. Like I was
Mhm.
multiple events, three ongoings at once, just mini series. Just it was constant work, and it was I felt. I mean, similar to how I told you guys that I always think about Destiny New York for a time, and this is real. I was always thinking about Zenescope in certain ways. You know, like I say that Robin Hood was my baby, but at the same time, Robin Hood appeared in my Van Helsing series. Van
Mhm.
Helsing appeared in Robin. Things that were started in Robin were resolved in Van Helsing. You know, it was very it was a once in a lifetime gig because I mean, one of my first miniseries was Godstorm, and I remember being told I was like, Godstorm, it's fun, but it isn't a staple series. So whatever I write, resolve because it's your last chance. And then from that point on, I was like, all right, so the characters in Godstorm are actually going to be in this book too, you know. And I just kept
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Where I would, you know, I managed to get these long runs where it doesn't really seem that way. Like Godstorm ran for 5 issues, but really it kind of ran for 30, you know?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that itself, that experience in general is very close to me. Um, but outside of Zenescope, my other baby is actually not comics at all. For a company called Joe Books, they license the Marvel titles, and I wrote um, in the fall of I think 20 maybe 15. I wrote an Iron Man novel, and
Yeah.
then in over the course of the first half of that next year, in about 3 months, I wrote a Guardians novel, a Thor novel, and a an Avengers novel. Four novels
Nice.
came out in one summer, and it felt as if we were building our own Marvel universe. And the plan was to do just that.
Yeah.
To you know, I pitched one Captain America book and a second Avengers book that would bridge them all together and have this big climax and essentially be a a novel phase one, how the movies have their
Hmm.
phases,
Yeah.
and then Joe Books went under, and we didn't get to do those, but we did get to do those four novels, which was a great experience.
Wow. Hey, I want to piggyback on that for a second, and
Yeah.
this is me going way off, but you just piqued my interest or something. I'm guessing you've thought of a way to do a MCU version for DC.
Oh yeah, I mean, I.
So how would it go? I mean, set up phase one. Now you don't have to go in depth, but set up phase one. What do
Oh
we got?
boy, um, it's hard to say it now because I thought about this a lot when Man of Steel was first going to come out.
Okay.
My thoughts were that you know you do Superman,
Hmm.
then you do a non A-list character. Like you do a Booster Gold.
Oh,
You
yes.
do you do something like that.
Okay. Why? Explain to me why.
Because Iron Man wasn't A-list.
Right. Yeah.
So
No.
but here's why Superman first though. Superman first because um if they started with a non A-list at this point after Marvel has done what they've done,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Then they're not going to be looked at as building
Mm-hmm.
a universe. You have to start big, but then if you have a hit and you have a good solid first movie, that's when you kind of go off. You do
Okay.
that first hitter, right? That first icon, and then your next project is not to do Batman, but to turn a B-lister into that icon.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I would do it kind of like on and off. I would do a Superman, and then I would do a Booster Gold. Then I would do Batman, then Swamp Thing. Do different genres and bring it together that way. And then if I were DC, I would have waited a lot longer before doing Justice League. Like
Oh, me
Yeah.
too. Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
if I was doing phases, I wouldn't have that in phase one at all. I would
Yeah.
have phase one possibly end with a World's Finest. Possibly.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Yeah,
Possibly.
I like that.
But maybe even had that phase two. Like I feel like the long game is kind of overlooked,
Well, and Warner Brothers is totally missing the long game, and I think I can see
Isn't that
why
what
it
Marvel
happened.
did? Isn't that why it
Totally,
paid off?
yeah. Well, because Marvel was gambling in the beginning. I mean,
a lot of gambles, yeah.
they didn't know that RDJ was going to be the icon that he is.
Yeah.
They didn't know that Iron Man could resonate so well with characters or with people.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, and I was much more of a DC guy than I was a Marvel guy, and now I honestly don't buy either one of them. Well, I lie about that. I still get Thor, but when it comes to their movie universes, I like Man of Steel. I see what they were trying to do. It's got some flaws. I don't care. I still like it.
Yeah.
I like Ben Affleck's Batman in that Frank Miller-ish kind of way that they're kind of trying to mix them together. I think that's fine. But yeah, the way they set up the films, and when you said Booster Gold, I got excited because he is my B, sometimes C-list character that I would love for them to make a good movie on. In fact, there was I can't remember who put it out there, but it may have been Valiant because their Twitter account is just fun to follow. They had said if you could make any writer producer team do a superhero film, who do you have them do? And Shane Black, and I can't remember his producing partner, but have them do the team that made The Nice Guys.
Yeah.
Did you see that movie, The Nice Guys? With
No.
It's a great film. Definitely go check it out. I think you can get it on one of the streaming services right now. But the dialogue's great. But I'm like, you get Ryan Gosling, Shane Black, and that same team together, and you make a Booster Gold film, and I guarantee you'd have a hit.
Oh yeah.
It would happen, John. It would happen.
No, it's funny too because when you said Booster Gold, Pat, I asked Greg this because he's more of a DC guy than I am. I'm just a Batman guy. That's who I am. But when I was asking him, he said you got to do like Shazam or Booster Gold first.
Shazam, yeah.
And I was like, why would you do them first? And he explained to me like how you just explained to me because Iron Man wasn't a B list. I mean, he wasn't an A list guy. Wasn't the only two A-list was really Spider-Man and somebody else, right? That was it. Spider-Man and Wolverine. Those are your only A-listers, right? At that time.
Oh, see, that's what Marvel. That was 20 years ago, Marvel.
Yeah.
You still had the Ultimate Universe just kind of roaring big. I think at that point, so Spider-Man was big, X-Men.
Hey Pat, anybody that you'd like to write that you haven't that's mainstream? Like, have you always wanted to tinker with Green Lantern or Batman or Spider-Man or Moon Knight or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, of superhero things, I would certainly love to write Thor.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I love Thor.
yeah, my Marvel choice would be Thor. My DC choice is Swamp Thing. And my non Marvel or DC choice is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I
Yeah.
my first ever gig was Angel, and I wrote Angel for 2 pages, and it was a short story in the last ever Angel comic from IDW, and yeah, I love that series. It's in many ways formative for me, and the fact that it got to be my first gig has felt like something that I would want to return to. And I will say I wouldn't want to write Buffy in the way that it's being done at Boom. As far as the reboot, my thought would be to write. I would love to write in any form a Buffy that's in line with the original vision. Because I like the Boom comic, but that doesn't feel like what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing any of that Afterlife, Archie Afterlife, or the Vampironica or anything like that? Some of the stuff they're doing with those Archie type books.
Yeah, I will say the Betty and Veronica books look interesting to me artistically, but I've actually, I've never read one, so I can't really say.
I took a chance on it at a con, and I had seen a little bit of it. Like they used to send us PDFs over at the Pull Box to review and things like that. And the Jughead werewolf story was good.
Yeah.
And they did some crossover stuff with like Predator and stuff like that. That was a little bit more cartoony.
Yeah.
But that Afterlife kind of genre that started with the very dark version of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and then Vampironica. Then the Jughead werewolf story and then Vampironica. They're actually really good, just using that cast of characters in that very dark Buffy-ish kind of way. And it's quality stuff. The art is fantastic. The writing is good. So yeah, I'd say give those a peek.
Yeah, I would be intrigued to read it. I mean, like, the truth is though, I mean, for the better part of like four decades, Archie as a company has been selling lies. Like, they're trying to tell us that 2 high school girls, right, are into a redhead with freckles. I mean, dude, I grew up as a redhead. That's, I mean,
it looks like you're still living the life too, man.
Yeah, they've got some balls, is all I'll say.
Well, isn't Archie based off of Richie Cunningham?
Oh, I mean, he looks kind of like the same way that Richie's like kind of like a herb. He does look that way. But I mean, when it comes down to it, if I were to envision a battle, of either wits or fists between Richie and Archie, to me, it's Richie all day, son.
Yeah, I always thought Happy Days was the comic book version of Happy Days before I knew any. Like, I always thought that's what it was. I didn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I was a kid, and I would, because I didn't pick those. Like, there was, Spider-Man and there was Archie, and I was like, oh, well, this is easy. I'm grabbing Spidey-Man.
I mean, they treat Archie as if he's Fonzie.
Really?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Okay,
what is that about? Like.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
My daughter watched the Riverdale series, and I like some of the CW shows, but that one I was just like, I can't do it.
Dude, that one is. I mean, it's melodrama. As melodrama could be.
It is American Telemundo. It is ridiculous. Yeah. They did a musical episode where all they did is sing each other's names for one song, and I'm like, what are you watching? I can't do it. Turn it off.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I mean, it looks beautiful. They have the whole like how Underworld was just blue.
Yes.
The show's blue, so Archie's glowing red hair looks great on that blue background. But dude, no, it's it's not for me.
Yeah, I am not, and I can say I'm not their target audience, so I think they're probably doing well enough. But
I'm sure. I'm sure.
the 40-something dad, they're like, yeah, you don't need to watch our show.
Yeah.
Hey Pat, have you listened to any of our podcasts before or watched any?
Yeah,
You have. Cool.
Yeah,
You don't have to prove yourself. I'm just asking because I want to ask you if you're interested in the Gauntlet or not.
I'll tell you this. I haven't seen a full episode. What what I do is this, because I don't really what I listen to mostly is comedy podcasts by like Theo Vaughn,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Bobby
God, that
Lee,
guy's crazy.
a few names that we don't say anymore, and when I was looking for comics podcasts, I did a spree on YouTube, and you guys really stood out to me because I love conversations that, aren't just about the topic that you
Yeah.
come on to discuss. Like, dude,
Mhm.
like I came on to discuss obviously Destiny New York, and to me, covered. So we're good. I want to talk about everything in the world.
See, that's why I'm like, I want to get it out first.
Yeah.
I know how we are on the
That's
show.
what stood out to me about you guys. Like, what I do is I'll go to an episode, right? And I'll just pop in the middle and I'll see how the conversation is going. I'll see what you guys are talking about. I'll catch the vibe. And I did that with some of your stuff. And yeah, I like the vibe, but I will admit, I do not know what the Gauntlet is.
Cool.
Well,
the
it's
Gauntlet,
relatively new. So
yeah, the Gauntlet's relatively new. Sometimes I judge it off of the vibe of the host. Like sometimes we hit some deep stuff and it just doesn't feel right to end it with the Gauntlet.
Yeah.
But the Gauntlet is a question of it's 5 questions from a game I bought called I Wish I Didn't Know. And what I do is I pull them at random. So I haven't even looked over them or anything like that. And they could get a little, Greg, how would we describe
they
this?
could get a little racy, but I think given your body of work, you're going to be okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah. So would you like to take a run through the Gauntlet?
Yeah, I will say I used to be scared what people would think about me online, but now I'm not that way. So yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Here we go. Question number 1. Which of these items should you wash before using due to traces of formaldehyde in the packaging? Is it A, bed sheets, B, socks, C, underwear, or D, all the above? This is where we really need to like put in music,
The music.
Bed sheets, A.
Bed sheets, A. You are actually incorrect. Well, you're correct, but you're incorrect
It's
because
all of
it's
the
all of them.
All the above. Damn, dude.
Can you
Yes.
imagine that? Formaldehyde is in bed sheets, socks, and underwear? I didn't know
They got
that.
the corpses working overtime, Yeah.
Baby carrots. Have you heard the story of baby carrots?
Yes. Is that true?
So,
Because I've stopped eating those because of that.
yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So baby carrots as a whole is really interesting because baby carrots, like the pre-bagged baby carrots,
Yes.
are actually the what they used to be the I would say dysfunctional, but they don't have. They're the ones they would throw away. Like they would weed out these are bad carrots, and one kind of farmers like were throwing away dozens or hundreds of pounds of carrots a day. How about we just peel them, slice them to be this big, and then we can have a new product. So that's how baby carrots were born. But they need to wash them in like a chlorine to get them to be preserved because they're already peeled. Like it's not like a regular carrot. So like I mean I remember one of my kids like from a Happy Meal or something like that.
Color them again.
Oh yeah, they do that.
Yeah.
They do so much shit to those things, and then you pop it in your mouth, and it's just nothing but chemicals.
Yeah.
I would say to anybody listening, and I'm sorry if I'm trying to destroy an industry, but stay away from baby carrots. Just peel your own damn carrots.
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
So, question 2, John.
Question 2. If your plane crashes, you've got this much time to get the hell out if you want to survive. Is it A, 30 seconds, B, 90 seconds, C, 2 minutes, D, 5 minutes?
If your plane crashes?
If your plane crashes, you've got this much time to get the hell out if you want to survive.
I would say, and dude, it's kind of rough because like I'm sure it changes based on where you crash.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would think so.
Like, I'm gonna go with 30 seconds.
You would be incorrect. It is 90 seconds.
90 seconds. So, I mean, where are you
Dude.
going to go? You're 36,000.
Again, it depends on where you crash. You know, if you're
Yeah.
crashing into a mountain, you don't have 90 seconds to jump
Is
out.
it like what am I? Is it post crash? Like trying to get out
It
of
just
the
says if you're
wreck?
playing crashes.
Did y'all see what happened at United yesterday?
No, what
I think
happened?
it was
No.
yesterday. There was a plane. I can't remember. I think it took off from like Miami, but I could be wrong about that. Headed to Hawaii, and right after takeoff, one of the engines like imploded. Like
no.
like the whole casing is it's still spinning, but there's flame shooting out of it. They immediately turned around. No one was hurt. It was
Awesome. Good.
it's one of those things where they're like, hey, we made it. But the I saw it on Reddit, and then it blew up other places. But the footage of it, you're like, oh my god. And of course, we just booked flights on United, so I'm like, oh,
That's so crazy. Isn't United the same company that old man was sitting there and
he bounced his head off a chair?
Yeah, it was crazy. They're like, you please go. You know, we'll give you this amount of money to go. And he's like, no, I have to stay. So they're like, all right, bow, bow, bow. You know,
it was a doctor. Yeah, I'm not real happy that we're flying United, but that's the package that my wife found. So, but yeah, it's they
Pat, where are you right now? Where are you right now, Pat?
Where am I?
Yeah, where are you?
Are you in New York?
Yeah, I'm in New York. Yeah.
New York. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are we in the city, New York, or are we just in the state, New York? Obviously, both. But
yeah, we're in Long Island right now.
Long Island. Okay.
On Long Island, I should say.
Best damn tea I've ever had.
Oh yeah. Oh, I got you. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a Sheldon. Cooper reference. You ever see that episode?
Oh no.
No. You haven't seen. You know what I'm talking about, or no?
I'm gonna guess either Big Bang Theory or that little prequel, Young Sheldon. You know?
Yeah. No, it was Big Bang. He. I think somebody gave him a Long Island iced tea, and he thought it was just iced tea, and so he's drinking it, and he goes over to fight. Who's that dude that played William Crusher in Star Trek Next Generation? Yeah, he went over to fight Will Wheaton, and he goes, "Are you drunk, dude?" He goes, "No, just been drinking tea. Best damn tea I've ever had in my life."
Pat, what's your take as a fellow nerd? What's your take on Big Bang Theory?
You know, I actually once dated someone who was super, super into it and defensive of it. But yeah, like, because you know, there's this stigma, like they're you know, they're making a mockery of nerd stuff. But the truth is, like, I haven't watched a bunch of it really, so I'm not invested in that argument. But I mean, to me, it just seems like a sitcom. You know, sitcoms, you know, they pick their focus. Like, you know, Friends picked how like New York richer kind of people act at that age. You know, Seinfeld picked how sociopaths act. You know, that shows just pick a focus and they, you know, milk it for jokes. So I mean, I have no personal feelings about Big Bang Theory because I haven't watched enough of it to say. But I mean, it seems to me just to you know, it does what a sitcom does.
Yeah. Have you ever wanted to write for a sitcom or Saturday Night Live or anything like that?
You know, maybe in the past SNL, I don't feel like the writing feels very honest right now. And for a long time.
What does that mean? What does that mean, Pat? Honest writing.
It feels like there's not, because the thing about comedy is, right, it's in comedy you go for the best joke, you know?
Right.
SNL doesn't feel like they're really going for the best joke to me. It feels like they're setting up these skits and they have like a lot of random humor. Like, I mean, I don't want to criticize any writers, but the truth is that, I mean,
I don't find it funny anymore.
Yeah, the question is what the question is. So I will say things like there's that Tom Hanks skit where he's like a Halloween guy in a skeleton outfit, and the entire joke is like, I'm a Halloween guy, you know, and that's the whole joke, and that's not funny to me, you know.
Right.
And they have great performers in some ways, like Keenan, great performer. He turns mediocre material into terrific material through his performance. And when they have guys like Dave Chappelle on, of course it's going to be funny.
Yes.
But it's definitely turned from must see TV to at least not for me TV. You know, like for me, I mean, dude, like looking back, say what you want about it being like the second string SNL, Mad TV, they would at least they would try for the joke every single time.
Yeah.
They didn't always land, but they would always try for the joke. And I feel like, you know, we're not really in a place right now where there's a lot of great comedy in film and TV. There's not much going on.
No, you're right. You're right. It's
Like,
almost bland.
Yeah, it is. And
I think people are afraid to be funny now because people are going to get canceled. And
who are you going to be? Who are you going to offend? Kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this. Like, I was actually just talking about this. How before and even somewhat during this current Marvel movie thing where the superheroes are the blockbusters. I mean, it isn't that long ago that the blockbusters were comedies. Superbad, Knocked Up. Those
40-year-old version, yeah.
There's nothing like that being produced right now that's going to that level, you know?
You're right. Yeah.
There was a time where people went to the theater to laugh, you know, and there were even movies like, for example, The Hangover I don't love, but that does fit what I was talking about in that it's a blockbuster movie that's a comedy. Yes. Now, if you see a comedy as a blockbuster, it's like an action comedy, a horror comedy. It's a genre element because people are obsessed with the idea of genre now. People can't just be people, you know? So what I would love to do is, I mean, I would love to write more comedy. And I would love to write comedy for the screen. There's definitely an absence of it right now for sure.
Yeah. What's your favorite kind of genre to write for?
I love just straight drama. Like
just straight drama? Okay.
Yeah, like I mean, I love what I do on Destiny New York.
Yes.
And I shape that into what essentially plays out in many ways, like a straight drama with few genre elements, but they are there, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But like what I watch, my favorite shows, Sopranos, 6 Feet Under, Leftovers, and Leftovers it starts with a big genre element and then it's done. Like you can look at it in a way where there are a few moments of genre throughout, but they really aren't. It's all psychological, you know? And yeah, like that's what I love.
Okay.
And I mean, I do love genre. Like I grew up loving Buffy. I love Supernatural, for example. Supernatural is a great example of a show that did something for so long that it became one of the most unique creations of all time. Like Supernatural, you know, it started out as a show that was like, you know, it can be seen in the same genre as Buffy, Angel, a darker kind of Charmed, you know, very much in that same vein. But they lasted for so long that they had this thing where they would do standalone episodes, and they were the most insane things you've ever seen. Like there was one that was just this story about you know, I don't want to spoil it, but essentially it's this guy in an old folks home. His mind is creating a certain oddity in the world, and the way that they handled these one-off stories was just so unique. It felt as if you know, we've done every monster of the week that we could, so how do we then continue to create unique stories on a weekly basis? And that became very, very unique to me. So I do love genre. It's just that I think that I personally don't love to be forced to add it to all of my work. So when I seek out work to enjoy, that there's less of that supernatural element in it now.
I see.
I mean, these days, you know?
Yeah. I always pictured, you know, with those two actors, when they would get that phone call expecting to get canceled and they keep getting renewed and they're like, okay, I'll see you Monday.
Yeah.
Like, damn, we just got again. Like, that's how I always picture those two. Because you would think, I think when they first started that show, they said, we had like a 5-year plan and that was it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like, I think it was like when they were, one was an angel, one was the archangel Michael, and the other one was the devil, and that was
Right.
supposed to be the end of it. And then
Yeah.
it kept going.
And it was that season was
Yeah.
the perfect end to the show.
Yeah.
And it felt for a while to me, it felt as if, man, I'm happy it's still here, but they had such a good ending. But then it just stayed on for so long and did so many different things that it was like, just the fact that they're doing this still is just so impressive that
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I did stop feeling that way,
Yeah, I agree.
about season 5. That is.
Yeah. All right. You ready, Pat?
Let's
Number
do it.
3.
Let's do it.
The human body is a walking germ, but which part contains an average of 67 different species of bacteria? Is it your stinky feet, your foul mouth, the belly button you never clean,
Oh,
the ear canals you completely ignore?
fuck. I'll say this: if it's belly button, I'm so fucking skeeved out. Gotta go with mouth.
You are incorrect. It is the belly button, sir.
God,
That you never clean. You know, I heard something about that actually. That the belly button, like, it has some like horrible things in there that could like shut down the world if it ever.
That's where the
Ugh.
zombie invasion
Yuck, dude.
came from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Can you
where the
imagine? That's
umbrella-
probably where the zombie. There you go. There is your newest story, Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The zombie happened from the belly button.
Your rom-com.
Jesus Christ.
Or if you ever get a chance at a
All from a belly-
Resident
belly
Evil story, Umbrella Academy produced the whole thing from Belly Buttonland.
All right. Question number 4. The place you go to get clean is actually dirty as hell. The filthiest item in your shower is your A, shampoo bottle, B, bar soap, C, loofah, D, faucet handles.
Come on, John.
Oh, it's that loafer, of course.
That is correct. It is the loofah. Why'd you say, oh, come on, John?
Is that how you say that? Lofa?
Yeah.
Oh, loofah is loofah. Huh?
Loofah.
Is it loofah?
Loofah
You
butt.
know what's crazy? That right there, you said loafa, and I'm so unfamiliar with using one of those things. I just went with you. I was like, yeah, it's loafa. But it
Yeah,
is
I'm a little
loofah,
worried. I'm a
is
little
it?
worried that Greg got all a little offended about it.
You know, I because language has been a thing around here lately, and I just saw. Yeah, I don't know.
He is outnumbered at his house with girls, though.
I am.
So am I.
But I find word humor completely hilarious, and I try to search it out. And John, I know how you feel about TikTok. I don't know about Pat, but I'm flipping through, and I found it's a clip of a podcast, and this guy, these two, they had, I want to say, Jersey accents, and it sounded almost intentional, like they were doing it on purpose. But this guy's like, so I had to go get some Tupperware. He's like, what?
Oh, dude, I know that
He's like,
bit.
you know that bit, the
Yeah.
Tupperware. He's like, say it again, Tupperware. One more time. He's like, just the first part, Tupper. He's like, no, it's Tupper.
Yeah.
It's like, what? He's like, I've got a clinical doctorate in physical therapy, and I've been saying Tupperware my entire life.
Dude, that
And
bit
that's
so fucking funny.
it's funny, and that shit happens in my house constantly
time.
with
Yeah.
two teenagers and a preteen. They say stuff, and you're like, wait, what? What did you say?
Yeah. I love how it plays out with them. Yeah, that's I think it's called the Hey Babe podcast with the one guy is Chris DiStefano. And the other guy I don't know, but they're hilarious. And yeah, dude, I'm on TikTok, That's
Dude,
it's my favorite platform.
Greg, I gotta explain why. It's not that I don't like TikTok. I'm deathly afraid of TikTok because I downloaded it for a weekend and I didn't look up from my phone
Oh, yeah.
for like 12 hours straight. And I thought, I gotta stop this because
Yeah.
this isn't good for my development as a person. I gotta shut this off.
The only thing would be all the Instagram videos that you send me have the TikTok watermark on them.
Yep. See what I'm saying? I even found it on Instagram
Yeah,
and I just
yeah.
scroll through it and I'm like, oh my God, I've wasted like 30 minutes. I got to get to work here.
It's so crazy. I mean, I am on that platform. I create on it, I open packs of Pokemon cards on it. But dude, I'll watch it I mean, I must have heard small waist, pretty face, and a big bag.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Probably a million times. You know.
My
My
favorite
wife will
one right
yell at
now
me.
is that one with the where the the girl when they start playing the song and it's bada yada 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 yada
Oh,
yada
yeah.
yada
Yeah.
right and I did that to my wife Greg and she started doing it. I thought there's no way this happens, but it actually happens. They actually
anytime the oh no,
Yeah.
oh no, my wife will turn to me and be like, scroll, just fucking scroll. She can't take it. She can't
Dude,
take it.
Gwen walks around the house. Gwen is my 2-year-old daughter, Pat, and she
Yeah.
walks around the house going, "Oh no."
That's very cute. That's very
Yeah.
cute.
Well, I'm gonna hit you up on there, Pat, if you're putting content.
Yeah,
out.
please do. Yeah, it's just Pat Shand on there. People think that my name is Pat's Hand, but
I didn't even connect that. Oh, shame
yeah.
on me.
I mean, dude, that's followed me. You know, yo, come on.
The cats are like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Oh yeah, Pat's Hand.
Yeah.
I met many of the people that would be my first collaborators on the Angel comic. I met them through being on the Angel comic forums and through doing chat rooms. And my name there was always Pat Shand. And I met the artist Stephen Mooney, who would actually draw my comic. And when he met me, he was like, "Oh, I thought it was Pat's Hand." And then ever since then, I've been using that name, and it's been following me, dude. Everyone thinks Pat's Hand.
I think that's
sounds like a
hilarious.
character you got to throw on there.
Hey,
sometime.
Pat, one more time. Before we do the last question, where can people find you? Where can they follow you? What can they help you with in Kickstart?
All right, I'm everywhere. It's at Pat Shand or at Pat's Hand on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. If you want to see me opening Pokemon cards, I also do cat videos and comedy videos. Just not as much as the open Pokemon cards because I have an addiction, you know.
Are you one of those guys that are opening cereal boxes right now in the middle of the store?
Dude, I'll tell you this. This is so crazy. Walmart. I went to the Walmart and I looked to see if I could, like a normal person, buy a cereal box, you know?
Yeah.
And the Pokemon stuff is in Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I looked at the shelf. There was one that had the Pokemon symbol, and it was popped open. Just one.
Yeah.
And someone had went into it. So I go there the next day. It's still there, popped open. The next day, still there, popped open, not addressed at all. The fourth day, Walmart had taped the box up.
Oh god!
Like, dude, who's gonna buy that box now? You know, so strange. But yeah, people have gotten savage with Pokemon cards.
Yeah,
It's
Wow, I didn't
a
know.
crazy
I didn't
time.
know. I knew when they invented that game where people were walking around outside, not looking
Pokemon
around.
Go.
Pokemon
Trying,
Go.
yeah, and trying to. Was that you, Pat? Were you walking outside? I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, I'm in your bush, but there's a Pokemon in here. I gotta get it.
Oh, dude, I play Pokemon Go all day, every day now. What's crazy is like, it's weird how things fade into the public background. Pokemon Go is more popular and makes more money now than it did back then. It's just that it was so new back then, and while of course cell phones have been around for a long time,
Yeah.
but this kind of quality phone was somewhat newer back then, so it was odd to see so many people walking around looking at their phone. Now, you assume that they're texting, you know?
Yeah.
But Pokemon Go is even bigger now. It really is crazy. And the cards, dude, the situation with the cards is so wild because people like Gary Vaynerchuk, Logan Paul, these influencers have bought into the hobby as investors. You know, that they're buying these, $1 million vintage boxes, and they're setting these new prices and getting people to be speculators. So now, I wanted to go to Target at the release date of this new set and buy a few things. There was the restock lady was there because all these stores don't stock the Pokemon and the sports cards themselves. They have a stock person who works at the distributor, drive and ship the cards to them, stock their store, and go on to the next store. So the stock lady has her huge box there, and there's a line of people waiting for her to unstock it. So I get on the line, they're going to limit how much you could buy per person, and everyone in the line is talking about reselling this stuff. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to open it,
Yeah.
and keep it. But yeah, it's become this, it's like the stock market. It's like lotto tickets now. People,
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So imagine it's like 1998, 1999. I'm working at a comic shop in Janesville, Wisconsin, Kryptonite Collectibles. And I was hired to be a comic book guy. Like, they wanted someone with comic book knowledge, and that was me. Instead, I spent entire shifts at the Pokemon counter.
Yeah.
Just doing buy, sells, and trades. And I'm sitting there with my Beckett, and the guy who ran the shop said, we're giving 40 cents on the dollar for this level card. We're going to give 60 cents on the dollar for this level card, whatever it was. And I'm just sitting there, and these kids are bringing stuff in.
Yeah. And
I'm just in there with that calculator, just trying to, I'm like, okay, you get this much in credit, or you get this much in cash. What do you want to do? And that I barely got to touch any comics when I was there.
Wow. I can't believe it's that.
Oh, it was huge. It was absolutely huge.
Yeah. It was huge then, and
it's huge now. Absolutely.
Believe it or not, the way that it's shot up in the past, even 3 months, is so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that, for example, they do a new set every 3 months, right? It used to be that when a set was not playable anymore in the actual game, you'd be able to afford to buy the old material more, Now, the older stuff, dude, I was able to buy a booster box, which is 36 packs of a set that came out 2 years ago in December for $200. Now, in February, that is $450.
Yeah.
In 2 months. It's
collector value on cards
skyrocketed. It's
It's
insane because it's a mixture of things. It's one boom in interest is that the audience now that can buy them as like 30-year-olds who are adults who have money, they were kids when they wanted these cards.
Yeah.
Now they can buy the cards. That's one thing. The other thing is these speculators, like now Logan Paul, Gary V, Steve Aoki, he's a DJ, but now his Instagram is about Pokemon cards. He's buying and selling these incredibly, I don't know if he sells, but he does these box breaks where you can get a card that's graded by PSA and it has his name on it, and it's driving up the value to these insane prices, and it's driving these scalpers to go to the store to buy out the sealed product. Yeah. And I mean, at Walmart, they don't care at all. They aren't like Target. At Walmart, you go, if there's a line, the first 3 people have what they can carry and they're out. And then you get nothing, And they go online. Like, for example, this box is supposed to sell for about, I think, $50. Go on eBay, see Shining Fates Elite Trainer box. The shit sells for like $120, $150, And that's just a sealed box.
Wow.
So someone could go to the store, be the first, get them all, come home and make thousands of dollars. And it sucks, but at the same time, there's no real way to stop that kind of thing. It's sort of like comic speculation. These if a writer is hot, like right now, James Tynion is hot. I don't even know how to say his name. James Tynion, he's a hot writer. He writes Batman. His creator on books sell out. So when he put out this book that you can buy through his site, and I bought a few because it's gonna eventually sell. But I read comics though, so I have those for myself too. But it does kind of burn to see these people who aren't interested in something that I like coming in and just scooping it all up, because it's like,
oh yeah, that sucks.
If you want to sell it, buy one or buy two, and then make a little bit, and then go elsewhere, but don't like rob the shelf and make it so the reason that people are buying it at this high price is because it doesn't exist because of you. You know, like they're creating the demand and then reaping the benefits.
I think I remember that when Jim Lee did Batman. Hush.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
happened.
I can
And it happened big in I can't remember when Superman died. Quote unquote died. The Doomsday storyline, and that was just when I was getting. I'm pretty sure. I think I was working on a farm, and I had some discretionary income to go start buying my own comics, like get a month or a weekly hold spot at the comic shop, and start actually collecting. And it was rough, like for a kid to come in there, and you had to wait till after school to go to the comic shop, stuff like that. And then you find out that a bunch of dudes in your hometown that are just random guys are like, oh, this is going to be big. And they buy out an issue or something like that. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah. And to me, it's fine to do like to get one, to get two, to get a few. But if you're gonna go to a physical store and just take everything,
out.
That's so crazy to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But before I forget, yeah, I was saying that it's at Patch Chan on TikTok, Twitter, all that. And if you want to support my work, right now, Destiny New York #1 is in pre-orders through Black Mask. It's in Diamond Previews. You can order it through comic shops. And yeah, let's make it a big first #1 because it's an ongoing series. We've produced 4 volumes worth in just the main series, which is going to be about 30 issues. So if you are in for a long, ongoing ride that you can believe will deliver on time and consistently, because it's already done. It's been done for years now.
Yeah.
That's the book.
And if you're into digital comics, Comixology, you can find you on
That's
there
right.
too, right? Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Pat. Here's the last question.
Let's do it.
This female fashion staple was originally created for gentlemen. Was it A, the bra? Did I say that right, Greg?
Yes, John, you believe it.
B, stockings, C, high heels, or D, corset?
Dude, I was going to say, man, I kind of think stocking, I mean, for sure, but also high heels, though. No, you see those like colonial dudes,
Yeah.
rocking those stockings and those like little buckle things, I'm gonna say stockings.
Oh, you were so close. It was high heels.
Damn.
Oh,
Yeah, good try. Good
I
try.
remember Tim Roth in the movie Rob Roy having some high heels
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Now, he played the bad guy, and I was never so happy to see a bad guy get murdered in a movie.
Yeah, he's actually a really good bad guy to watch get murdered.
He's a great bad guy. He's
Yeah.
a great actor. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Pat. I think that's it, man. Thank you for jumping on here and hanging out with us. That was the Gauntlet, sir.
Happy to play in the gauntlet,
Yeah. All right, Greg. Any last words?
Oh, yeah, I suppose. I've been trying to think about new taglines for a while, but I'm gonna just stick with my go-to right now, which is as you're going through your week, just don't be a douche.
Yeah, that helps. Or
It
just
does. That's good.
be nice. All right, Pat. Thank you very much for Pat, the Greg. I'm Johnny. Podcast out, everybody. Have a good one.
See you guys.